The last Russian carrier didn't fall in battle. It drowned in rust, scandal, and silence. Russia's only aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov, is officially on the chopping block. After years filled with fires, accidents, and a string of embarrassing failures, the Kremlin is ready to let go of its flagship. Recent reports from Russian state media indicate that work on the vessel has been halted, and the final decision now hangs in the balance: will it be sold for scrap? But this isn't just about one unfortunate warship. It's a reflection of the broader decline of the Russian Navy and a startling shift in who will dominate the seas. The end of the Kuznetsov isn't merely a sign of weakness. It marks the start of a daunting transformation. To grasp this failure, we need to rewind to the ambitious vision that birthed it. The Admiral Kuznetsov was never just a ship. It was a bold statement, laid down in the 1980s in what was then Soviet Ukraine. It was meant to lead a new class of supercarriers designed to challenge American naval supremacy worldwide. Unlike American carriers, which serve as pure floating air bases, the Kuznetsov was a hybrid, a heavy aircraft-carrying cruiser. It boasted 12 massive P-700 Granite anti-ship missiles, capable of theoretically sinking an enemy carrier with just one hit. The plan was to build a fleet of these giants, projecting Soviet power across every ocean. But that dream crumbled before the first ship was even fully operational. The collapse of the Soviet Union took with it the funding, the industrial base, and the political will to sustain such a grand vision. Its sister ship, the Varyag, was left to rust and eventually sold to China, ironically becoming the foundation of Beijing's own carrier fleet, the Liaoning. Russia was left with just one, the Admiral Kuznetsov, a costly relic of a bygone empire. From day one, it was a ship without a country, a remnant of a future that never materialized. But how did one of the world's two superpowers end up with a flagship it couldn't even maintain? The answer lies in a single event that sealed the Kuznetsov's fate from the very beginning. In the fall of the Soviet Union was the fatal blow from which the Kuznetsov could never recover. Suddenly, the shipyard in Mykolaiv, Ukraine, where the carrier was built, became part of an independent nation. The specialized knowledge, the massive dry docks, and the engineering talent were now across a new border. Even the company that manufactured its powerful engines was Ukrainian, cutting off access to essential expertise and parts. Russia inherited a warship it simply couldn't maintain. It was like being handed the keys to a high-tech supercar, only to find out the only mechanic who knew how to fix it lived in another country, and you couldn't afford the parts anyway. This single event set off a decades-long saga of decline. The ship was fundamentally unsupported. Every attempt to modernize or repair it turned into an uphill battle against industrial reality, a fight Russia was destined to lose. But this systemic issue is one thing. The ship's actual operational history is another, a jaw-dropping chronicle of fire, failure, and sheer bad luck that has to be heard to be believed. The operational history of the Admiral Kuznetsov reads more like a long, embarrassing list of disasters than a military record. Its most notorious feature: the thick black cloud of smoke that trailed behind it. Its Mazut-fueled boilers were so notoriously unreliable that the carrier rarely set sail without a massive tugboat alongside, just in case the engines failed. It became a punchline in naval circles, the only carrier in the world that needed its own personal tow truck. Its one major combat deployment, off the coast of Syria in 2016, was a disaster. Within weeks, it lost 2 fighter jets, a MiG-29K and an Su-33, not to enemy fire, but due to its own faulty arresting gear. The planes simply couldn't land safely and crashed into the sea. The rest of its air wing was quietly moved to a land base in Syria to finish the mission. But the troubles didn't stop there. After returning home for a much-needed overhaul, the real calamities began. In 2018, the massive floating dry dock holding the carrier, the PD-50, suddenly sank beneath it. A 70-ton crane toppled over, smashing a huge hole in the carrier's flight deck. Then, in 2019, a fire broke out deep within the ship during welding work, tragically killing 2 workers and injuring over a dozen more. As if cursed, another fire erupted in late 2022. Throughout this process, repairs were plagued by delays, technical issues, and even accusations of embezzlement, with the shipyard director arrested for stealing funds meant for the project. Each accident added millions to the cost and years to the timeline, sealing the ship's fate. Today, the Admiral Kuznetsov is little more than a ghost ship. It's been sitting immobile in a shipyard in Murmansk since 2017, covered in rust and surrounded by scaffolding. In July 2025, Russian media confirmed what many analysts had long suspected. All work on the carrier has been suspended. High-level meetings between the Russian Navy and the United Shipbuilding Corporation are no longer about when the ship will be fixed, but whether to officially scrap it, and Recon, the head of the Shipbuilding Corporation, bluntly stated that it no longer makes sense to repair a ship that's over 40 years old and so costly to maintain. But the most telling sign of its demise came a year earlier. In 2024, the ship's entire crew of around 1,500 sailors was reassigned not to another ship, but to form a new ground combat unit sent to fight in Ukraine. You don't take the specialized crew of an aircraft carrier and turn them into infantry if you ever plan for that ship to sail again. It was the final, unspoken admission of defeat. The flagship of the Russian Navy had become more valuable as a source of manpower for a land war than as a warship. There's no coming back from that. So if the ship is truly finished, what does that actually mean for Russia's standing in the world? The answer reveals a major blow to its global ambitions. The loss of the Kuznetsov isn't just about scrapping an old vessel. It's a profound symbolic retreat. With its decommissioning, Russia will no longer be a carrier operating naval power. It will stand as the only permanent member of the United Nations Security Council without an aircraft carrier, placing its navy in a different league from the United States, China, the UK, and France. For a nation that has long prided itself on its great power status, this is a significant blow to its prestige. The aircraft carrier has long been the ultimate symbol of a blue water navy force capable of projecting power anywhere on the planet. By giving up its carrier, Russia is quietly admitting it can no longer compete in that arena. However, some in the Russian command are trying to spin this failure as a strategic choice. Influential figures like Admiral Kuznetsov, the former commander of the Pacific Fleet, argue that traditional aircraft carriers are now just expensive and ineffective targets, in an age of hypersonic missiles and swarms of naval drones. They claim, a billion-dollar warship with 5,000 sailors aboard is a lumbering liability. They insist Russia isn't retreating. It's adapting, choosing to abandon the weapons of the 20th century to invest in the weapons of the 21st. But is this just a convenient excuse for a humiliating failure, or is Russia building something else in the shadows? The answer lies in a radical new plan that reveals the truly shocking future of its navy. While the Kuznetsov was rusting away, Russia was quietly drafting its replacement strategy. In May 2025, President Putin approved a radical new naval development plan set to run through 2050. This strategy, shaped by the harsh lessons of the war in Ukraine, officially abandons the pursuit of a Western-style surface fleet. Instead, it focuses Russia's resources on three key areas. First, a massive expansion of its nuclear submarine fleet. This is the new heart of the Russian Navy. On July 24, 2025, Russia commissioned the Nyas-Pozharsky, the latest Bereya-class nuclear ballistic missile submarine, with Putin himself in attendance. These subs, along with the new Yasin-M class of guided missile submarines, are stealthy, powerful, and designed to operate undetected for months. They'll be armed with a new generation of weapons, including the hypersonic Zircon missile and the apocalyptic Poseidon nuclear-powered torpedo. Second, the new Doctrine prioritizes unmanned systems and smaller, missile-heavy surface ships. The war in the Black Sea proved that large ships are vulnerable. The future Russian surface fleet will consist of smaller frigates and corvettes, packed with long-range missiles. Crucially, Russia is now racing to build its own fleet of naval drones, explicitly copying the Ukrainian tactics that devastated its Black Sea fleet. During recent July Storm naval exercises, Russia publicly demonstrated its own kamikaze sea drones for the first time, signaling a major shift in its operational doctrine. Finally, the strategy pivots to the Arctic. Russia is leveraging its unique fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers, which can be militarized to control the Northern Sea route, a vital future shipping lane. This is a domain where no other navy can compete. With a staggering shipbuilding budget for the next decade, Russia is betting everything on this new vision, a navy built on stealth, standoff weapons, and asymmetric advantages. If you want to understand how shifting military doctrines are reshaping the global balance of power, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We break down the strategies and technologies that will define the conflicts of tomorrow. The story of the Admiral Kuznetsov isn't just one of failure. Its slow, painful decline marks a clear turning point. Russia has let go of the symbol of 20th century naval power because it can no longer maintain the illusion. It's trading the visible, prestigious aircraft carrier for a far more ominous reality, a stealthy, submerged, and largely invisible force designed for a new era of warfare. While the world watched its flagship rust, Russia was quietly building a different kind of navy, one that no longer sails on the surface to show its flag, but lurks beneath the waves, armed with the weapons of the future. The era of the Russian aircraft carrier is over. The era of the Russian submarine superpower has just begun.